Welcome to the Sanity Pulpit. I'm Philip J. Bradbury, and as I awoke this morning, I was prompted with the idea of sensory input. And of course, you're going to say, "So what?" And so did I when I when I thought of it 10 minutes ago. And so I'd suggest probably that you just shut down now because it's pretty boring. But hang on, that's exactly what's going on now, isn't it? Lack of sensory input. You see, probably the worst punishment we can give a human being is to deprive them of sensory input. Put them in a dark room where there is no light, there is nothing to see. Make it silent if we can. See, if we're in a dark room, at least we can talk to ourselves. There's an echo, and there's this unconscious thought that there's somebody else there. There's a slight comfort in that. So, what do? We pad it. We put people in padded cells because they are then absolutely alone. There is no echo, there is no light, and there are no physical things to touch apart from plain wall and floor. And the less sensory input we have, the more chance we have of going mad. In fact, a lot of people, most people, will go mad. They will lose their ability to think for themselves, their sense of self, their sense of orientation of themselves in the world and who they are and why they are just goes, and they, within 24 hours, some people just go mad with no sensory input. And that, in a sense, is what's happened to us here. We haven't obviously been totally lose our sensory input. We haven't been totally deprived of our senses, but many of them have. We don't have the normal um, things that come to us in our normal lives. We don't have the normal trip to work. We don't have work. And that sense of community that we used to have, whether we are working and we have colleagues, or whether at home and we have neighbours and friends just calling around, and we call around to people, and we go to movies, and we go to plays and restaurants, and all of those entertainment things. They are all things that come to us in our senses. And that is why we go to them, because otherwise we go mad. And why do we go mad? Because we're brought up in a world that we believe our existence comes from others, comes from outside of us. So as children, everything we learn from our parents. They teach us to tie our shoelaces and how to eat and how to speak and how to do all of those things that children need to learn, all those customs. And we have to keep asking our parents how to do this and are we allowed to do that? And our parents are continually instructing us, as they should. But we grow up with this thought that we don't have any internal knowledge. We are empty, ignorant bowls, empty cups that need to be filled from outside. Our parents fill those up for a while. And then we have friends, we become teenagers and we reject. We go through the parents know nothing, and everything we then learn comes from what our friends are doing. And so we absorb the beliefs and the styles and the way we talk and the music we listen to. That comes not from our own choice, but we follow others. And then of course we have teachers who fill our empty bowls with all this information about mathematics and geography and English and or whatever our language. And so this ignorance that we are, this emptiness, slowly gets filled up. And that comes from outside of us. So we have learned that we are empty. We know nothing. And everything that we are and have comes from outside. And so we fill ourselves up with the outside entertainment, if we like, or outside information. And that is who we are. And so when we phones, who would have phones? Gosh, be quiet. Um, and so we fill ourselves up, another outside impetus. And we have this belief, and it's particularly imbued in us from our schooling. We are sat in rows, we have a teacher at the front, and they are the master. And in fact, that is what they are called, the master. Not so nowadays, but the teacher often used to be called the master, walking around with a stick, and they knew everything, and we had to follow, and we have preset subjects that we must learn, and then that will give us a job, and then we will be successful, and then we will be happy. No, no, we don't care about happy. We just need to be successful in the eyes of the world. And so the world is so important to us that we follow the rules of the world and absorb them and become the human beings that we must be. We must be normal. We can't be like artists and those sort of people who stand out and do strange things. We can't. And so these empty chalices that we are need to be filled from outside. And that is the way we have grown up. And so we have fallen into the belief that everything that we are and are to become must come from outside of us. So when something or when whatever is outside of us is taken away, then a part of us is taken away because we have nothing to lean on. And we become these disoriented, uncertain. Who are we? What am I in the world? And so we, because of our past learning, we continually search for something outside of us. And so we fall into the believing what's on the news, which, as we know, is around about 80% not true. Um, that's just studies that have been done. And so we lean on that which is not true, or we fall into the fairy stories that our politicians and our scientists and all of those people who are supposed to know, they don't know. They are making assumptions about life, and they are telling us this is how it is. And so we fall into that because they have their white coats on or their suits on and their qualifications and so on. And so they, because they are our teachers, they are our masters walking around with the cane, and we must obey them. So the alternative, so when people are put into sensory deprivation situations, as in a padded cell, like prisoners, we go mad because there is nothing for us to lean on in terms of who are we and what is going on and our sense of self. So the alternative, which has come from over 2,000 years ago, Socrates, the great philosopher, teacher, he taught in a way that he said his pupils already knew the answers. And his job was not as teacher. His job was a reminder. So his Socratic method, which is still used nowadays in some, not very often, but it is used in a way that he simply asks questions and he asks questions and he asks questions. And the students realize that they actually have the answers. And in fact, we do all have the answers right now. And I'm hoping that as you're listening to these words, instead of going, oh, that's interesting, oh, I didn't know that, change your mind and just say to yourself, oh, that's right. I do. I remember. I remember. So I'm not telling you anything new. You know this. You actually do know this. And you know everything that you need to know for the rest of your life, for every detail. And yes, there are technical things we need to know, from tying our shoelaces to driving our cars to whatever. There are things that we do need help with. But in the big decisions we need to make, the answer is inside of us. And when we can change our mind and realize that we do have the answers inside, we don't need to lean on the world out there. And with our current isolation, people are disoriented because a lot of the things that used to be, that used to help us be who we thought we were, have been stripped away. And so we're feeling empty and I don't know where to go. I don't know who to turn to. You don't need to turn to anyone except yourself. And those are the people who do not go mad when they have sensory deprivation. When there is no sensory input, the place to go to is the place inside. start listening to ourselves, to our own truth. And that truth, it's not something we're used to listening to. It's it's that sort of it's a gut feeling, and people don't listen to those gut feelings. It's the intuition, it's those crazy ideas that usually A Course in Miracles, let's put it this way, A Course in Miracles tells us there are two voices. First, there is the loud, strident voice of ego. And that's if you like, the logical voice that tells us what we must do. When we have autism, as I say, we do the things we think we ought to do. Shouldism, some people call it. And then there is the quiet, still voice. So once the ego has stopped ranting and saying we must do this and this is what you must do, or the logical da 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 da, if we keep staying within our mind, within the silence, within that stillness, there will be another quiet, still voice, and you'll hear it. And often it's the most illogical thing, or it sounds illogical in the moment. But listen to it and act on it. There have been so many times that I have used it and found it so illogical, and yet it's just worked out. There was a silly little example. I had three things to do. Had to go to town, I had to go to the post office, I had to go to Anne's shop, health shop to get something there, and I had to deliver something else to another shop. And so here I am in New Zealand, driving along the left-hand side of the road, thinking, yes, I'll go to the post office first because it's on the left, stop there, do my postal thing, and then go to the other shop on the other side of the road, deliver that, and then go back to Anne's. And so that was my logical. But something, as I was driving, something said, no, just go straight to Anne's. But I was going, no, that's not logical, because then I'd have to go back, cross over the road, go way down there to the post office, then back to the other one. And okay. So I listened, and I dropped in at Anne's, and I was chatting to her, and another person, Michelle, came in that we both knew, and chatting to her, and happened to be Michelle said she's going to the post office, and I said, oh, I was just going there. She said, well, tell me to post it, and she was also going to the other shop as well. So I only needed one visit, and out of that one visit, as a coincidence, if you like, if there's such a thing, this other person, Michelle, dropped my letter off and returned my shoes to the shoe shop. In fact, that's what it was. And so it only needed one visit. So often, that quiet, still voice will tell us what seems to be a strange idea, an illogical idea, but it knows the big picture. It kind of knew that Michelle was going to turn up at Anne's shop. I didn't know this from my logical point of view, but my bigger knowing did know this. And it wasn't in my conscious mind, but it was there within me. And when I stopped and listened within me, then the answer came. Now, that's a crazy little example. But there are so many times when there are things, whether it's the big decisions about relationships, about jobs, about moving house, about where to live, all of those decisions, if they come from the inner, I will tell you right now that is the most effective and productive and simplest thing to do. And I simply suggest to you to start practicing. One, the first thing to practice is saying to yourself, or knowing to yourself that you have the answers. They are there right now. When you don't know what to do, you do not need to turn the TV on. You do not need to ask a friend. You do not need to ask your doctor. I would suggest to you, just stop and listen. And the answer might be to go and see the doctor. The answer might be make an onion poultice if you've got a chest cold or whatever it is. The answer might be something that does not normally occur to you, and it may not be the thing that you normally do. But I suggest to you try changing your mind for a moment, as many moments as you can, and just play with this idea and stop. And maybe just sit for a moment in a quiet space, close your eyes, and say to yourself, I think I don't know the answer, but if I did know the answer, what would that answer be? And then just be with it. There will be the loud, clamoring voice of logic will tell you, you need to do this. And let that go. And then there will be that quiet inner knowing. The Course of Miracles calls it the voice for God. Others call it intuition, others call it gut feeling, whatever it is, it's just a knowing that will come from some part of your body. Carolyn Mace says that she feels an ice cold feeling up her spine. Some people have a rocking in their shoulders. Some people have a sense of warmth in their heart. Some people have there's all sorts of bodily sensations that may or may not go with this knowing. However, just allow the peace and the quiet and let the second voice, that still quiet voice of assurance, and it may not be the one that you normally listen to. Try listening to it, and you may find if you quietly listen to it and take its advice, you'll be doing things that you may not have done before, but things that will be much more effective, much more efficient, less drama, less complicated, much more simple, and they work. So even without the sensory input from the world that we used to have, we are now being asked, there's now the opportunity, let's say, there's the opportunity to try input from within. So instead of using outtuition, tuition from others, we can use intuition from ourselves. So have a play, try it, and see how it works. And thank you for listening, and bless you all.